ॐ नमो भगवते वासुदेवाय। ॐ नमो भगवते वासुदेवाय। ॐ
ॐ नमो भगवते वासुदेवाय।
ॐ नमो भगवते वासुदेवाय।
ॐ नमो भगवते वासुदेवाय।
नारायणं नमस्कृत्य
नारायणं नमस्कृत्य
नरं चैव नरोत्तमं
नरं चैव नरोत्तमं
देवीं सरस्वतीं व्यासं
देवीं सर्वस्वं व्यासं
ततो जयम् उदीरयेत्।
ततो जयं विरीतये।
नष्टप्रायेषु भद्रेषु
नष्टप्रायेषु भद्रेषु
नित्यं भागवत सेवया
नित्यं भागवतसेवया
भगवतेरुत्तमश्लोके
भगवते उत्तमश्लोके
भक्तिर्भवति नैष्टिकी।
भक्ते भवति नैष्ठति।
कृष्णाय वासुदेवाय
कृष्णाय वासुदेवाय
देवकीनन्दनाय च
देवकी नन्दनाय च
नन्दगोपकुमाराय
नन्दगोपकुमाराय
गोविन्दाय नमो नमः।
गोविन्दाय नमो नमः।
Hare Krishna. Yeah, let's start. We are in the 10th verse onwards. So last week we discussed about the 10 topics of Srimad Bhagavatam, starting with Sarga creation, which is done by Mahavishnu. All the elements of the creation are created by Lord, 16 elements. And then Visarga is secondary creation, where Lord Brahma creates living entities within the universe using the elementary creation of Lord created in Sarga. And then Sthanam is the uh, position of the jiva. The and then Poshanam is maintenance, how the jivas are maintained by the mercy of the Lord. And then Manvantara, how the Manus reigned the world, and set great example for everyone to follow, how to perform activities in the world described here. And then Otayaha is the desire for work for jiva. What is the right desire for work is explained. And Ishanukata is the signs of God, how various incarnations of Supreme Lord are described in this. And then Nirodha is winding up, merging of jiva, mystic lying down of Mahavishnu, how the jiva goes back to the belly of Mahavishnu. And then Mukti is liberation. That is the liberation from the material bondage. And then finally, Ashraya is the shelter of the Supreme Lord. So these are the 10 parts of any Purana. Specifically, Srimad Bhagavatam has all these parts. And yeah, so the ultimate goal is Ashraya, which is taking shelter of the Supreme Lord. All of these are going to teach us lessons on how to take shelter, and this is the final shelter. So one of the question in the previous chapter, in 9th chapter, last verse, is how the creation happens. Um, even though creation was described in second canto, first chapter, subsequently in the 5th chapter, and again it is described. It is asked by Parikshit Maharaj and described further again by here. Even though it appears like the process of creation is described multiple times, each of those instances, the purpose is slightly different. Uh, so, for example, in the previous one, so in this current description, it is about how the desires shape the body of the jivas. So, for example, uh, whatever we are today, it is, the physical and subtle bodies that we have is based on the desires we have as of, right now. So that part of the creation is described here in this, how it comes as Lord desiring certain things, but actually Virat Purusha desiring certain things. Virat Purusha is a conglomeration of all the jivas. So it is basically the jivas desires that manifest the physical bodies of the, in the physical bodies of the jivas. Yeah, so let's go and read these verses. So this is this description of creation again. Again, third canto describes again this material creation. Why so many times this description of the material existence is given in Srimad Bhagavatam? It is actually good for the jiva. Uh, for the conditioned soul, this is for Paramahamsas, they relish the Krishna's Ashraya pastimes, the ultimate pastimes of Supreme Lord with his pure devotees, which are given in 10th canto. But for the conditioned soul, as he still struggling in the metal world, he requires knowledge of how Lord functions within the metal world. That is important. That is more inspiring for him because he can relate to it better than the pastimes of Lord in Vaikuntha or Goloka. So that is the reason, even though Bhagavatam is considered Paramahamsa Samhita, which is relished by Paramahamsas, it is also equally important for the conditioned soul because it gives them the inspiration to ultimately get to the Paramahamsa stage or take them to the Paramahamsa stage gradually. So let's read Purushondam Vinirbhidya.
Purushondam Vinirbhaya.
Yeah, Purushondam Vinirbhidya
Purushoniddham
पुरुषोद्यम विनिर्विद्य
Yada Sausa Vinirgata
Yada
यदा सौ सा विनिर्गता
Atmano Yanam Anvichan
आत्मनो
Atmano
यानम् अनिविच्छन्
Aposhraktis Chuchis Suchi.
Aposrakshit
अपोस्राक्सिक्
Suchi.
शुचिः
Yeah, please read.
Hare Krishna. After separating the different universes, the gigantic universal form of the Lord Mahavishnu, which came out of the causal ocean, the place of appearance of the first Purusha Avatara, entered into each of the separate universes, desiring to lie on the created transcendental water. That's the Garbhodakshaya.
Hmm. So, Lord, when Mahavishnu is the original source of all the material existence, um, so he came out of causal ocean, and universes are created from the pores of his body. Like a Mahavishnu was lying in the causal ocean, and from the bodily pores, universals came like a golden globules, right? Like small golden particles, and then they expanded into metal universes. And Lord again entered each of those universes again. So that is called Garbhodaksa Vishnu. First one is Mahavishnu. The second one is Garbhodaksa Vishnu. So he entered into each of the separate universes, desiring to lie on the created transcendental water. So then when he entered the each of these universe, Lord wonder where do I stay here? And his body perspires, and almost half the universe was filled with the water of the body, water from the body of the Lord. So that is called Garbhodaka, the water from the transcendental body of the Lord. That's why it's called transcendental water. So then he lies on that, and then further continues. Yeah. So please continue.
Hare Krishna. After analysis of the living entities and the Supreme Lord, Paramatma, the independent source of all other living beings, Srila Sukadeva Goswami is now presenting the prime necessity for devotional services to the Lord, which is the only occupational business of all living entities.
Hmm. Yeah. So Lord, the primary duty of all living entities is performance of devotion services. That is the goal of teaching all of the Srimad Bhagavatam.
Srila Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur replies the pastime of the Lord in the Vrindavana are meant to be the release by advanced devotee of the Lord. Neophyte devotees will misunderstand such supreme transcendental activities of the Lord, and therefore the Lord's pastime in the material sphere related to creation, maintenance, and destructions are verily relished by the Prakrita or mundane devotee of the Lord. As the yoga system, mainly based on bodily exercise, is meant for the person who is too much attached to the bodily conception of the existence. Similarly, the Lord's pastime related to the creation and destructions of the material world are for those who are too materially attached. For such a mundane creatures, the function of the body and the function of the cosmic world, though physical law in relationship with the Lord, or also therefore includes the understanding of the lawmaker, the supreme personality of Godhead. The scientists explain the material function by so many technologies, terms, and material law, but such a blind scientist forget the lawmaker. The Srimad Bhagavatam points out the lawmaker. One should not be amazed by the mechanical arrangement of the complicated engine or dynamo, but one should praise the engineer who creates such a wonderful working machine. That is the difference between the devotee and the non-devotee.
People of the material world, especially scientists, they wonder about the way material universe is working, in a perfect, orderly fashion. But for such a wonderful thing to exist, the Supreme Lord behind, they fall short of seeing the Supreme Lord, who is the source of all that wonderful creation, wonderful working mission. So that is because of their ignorance. They are not able to see that. Yeah, on the other hand, please continue here.
Devotees are always full with praising the Lord who directs the physical laws.
Hmm. So, but devotee can see clearly where this perfect functioning order is coming, right? Because they know from Bhagavad Gita, for example, Maya Jakshena Prakriti Suyate Sa Characharam Hetunanena Kaunteya Jagat Viparivartate. So, Maya Jakshena Prakriti. So, the Supreme Lord says, I am the uh, ultimate controller, Ajaksha of Prakriti, of material nature. So, everything in the material world is working in perfect order under my direction. Yeah, simply because I am transcendently all powerful, simply by my glancing over material nature, the physical laws of nature work so wonderfully. Yeah. So the actions and reactions of the physical law work on that account, and thus material world is created, maintained, and annihilated again and again. Yeah. Tasva avasthit swasrashtau
Tasva
Asva
avastau
avastisva strasta
sahasram parivartasaram
sahasram
sahasram
vastaram
parivastasaram
tena narayano nama
tena narayano nama
यदापा पुरुषोद्भव
यदा
data
पुरुषोद्भव
purushottama.
Yeah, please read.
that Supreme Person is not impersonal and therefore is distinctively a Nara or person. Therefore, the transcendental water created from the Supreme Nara is known as Nara, and because he lies down on the water, he is known as Narayana.
So the name, the reason for the name is given. Tena Narayano Nama. Because Lord lies on water.
Water.
Yeah, Nara. Nara means water. In Telugu also Nara we call, which means water. So because Lord lies on it, Aina, so it is called Narayana. Because Supreme Lord is lying on the Garbha ocean in the middle universe. Which is actually coming from his own transcendental body. Dravyam karma chakalascha
Dravyam
Dravyam
karma
karma cha kalascha
svabhavo jiva eva cha
svabho jiva
Svabhava
eva cha
yadanugrahata santi
Yad
yad
anugraha
anugrahat
santi
shanti
nasanti yad upekshaya.
na shanti
Santi
yad
yad
upekshaya.
upekshaya.
Please read.
One should definitely know that all material ingredients, activities, time and modes, and the living entities who are meant to enjoy them all exist by His mercy only. And as soon as He does not care for them, everything becomes non existent.
Yeah. So all the material ingredients, activities, time, modes, and living entities who are meant to enjoy them all exist by his mercy only. So everything comes only by his mercy. And as soon as he does not care for them, everything becomes non-existent. Everything ceases to. So when Supreme Lord goes to sleep, all the living entities also go to sleep, meaning they all go back to his body. So everything is activated by the presence of Supreme Lord. So that's why the verse is there, right? Andantarastha paramanu chayantarastam govindamadi purusham tamaham bhajami. The Supreme Lord is present in each and every element, each and every atom. That is why, for example, what does he do there? He gives the dharma for the element or the atom. For example, why sugar is sweet? Because it is the dharma of sugar. But why it is sweet? Because there is Paramatma within the atom of sugar, right? So if something is colorful, because that color is given, the dharma is given by the Lord. So how do you know? Because otherwise everything is same. So Paramatma, as Paramatma, Lord enters everything in existence and gives it its dharma, right? So when Lord is not there, then there is, everything is merged together in the body of Narayana. But when Lord is manifest in the form of Garbhodakasaya Vishnu, and then as Kshirodakasaya Vishnu within the atom of each and every atom, Andantarastha Paraman, then everything in material world, the jivas as well as the material energy in the form of material elements like earth, water, air, all these properties are having those specific individual properties, dharmas, only because of the existence of the Supreme Lord within them. Yeah. We all heard, we all hear the universes are moving, the planets are moving around sun in this universe. Similarly, within the atom also, electrons and protons are there, and electrons are moving around the nucleus. We all studied in our childhood, correct? You all agree? Right?
Correct.
We all studied. But then who started the motion? Somebody should start. Like, say, an element continues to be in its state of inertia until something moves it, correct? That is the Newton's law, right? For Newton's first law is an object will continue to stay in the state of inertia as long as there is no external force. You all remember Newton's law?
Yes, yes, sir.
Yeah.
Right? An object should be in this, in the same state of inertia. Inertia means no movement, and as long as there is no external force on it. But the question is, who started the motion of the planets in the universe? Who started the motion of electrons in the atoms? Planets in the universe, you can say Garbhodaksa Vishnu, and electrons in the atom, you can say who is it?
Sure.
Kshirodaksa Vishnu, who is
Sure.
present. Yeah. So he gives the property, he gives the life. Even though it appears like dead matter, the Supreme Lord in the form of Paramatma enters those and gives its own property. Everything has its own property, you know, like colors, like flowers, like variety exists because there is life in everything that exists. Even though it is, you know, like we see grass everywhere, but everything is enlivened by the Supreme Lord. Yeah, please read.
The living entities are the enjoyers of the material ingredients, time, modes, etc., because they want to lord it over the material nature. The Lord is the supreme enjoyer, and the living entities are meant to assist the Lord in his enjoyment and thus participate in the transcendental enjoyment of everyone. The enjoyer and the enjoyed both participate in enjoyment, but deluded by the illusory energy, the living entities want to become the enjoyer like the Lord, although they are not meant for such enjoyment. The jivas, the living entities, are mentioned in the Bhagavad Gita as the Lord's superior nature or Paraprakriti, and so is also mentioned in the Vishnu Purana. Therefore, the living entities are never the Purushas or the factual enjoyers. As such, the spirit of enjoyment by the living entity in the material world is false. In the spiritual world, the living entities are pure in nature, and therefore they are associates in the enjoyment of the Supreme Lord.
Yeah. So Prabhupada explained the nature of living entities in the material world. Yeah, because of forgetfulness, deluded by material energy, living entities in the material world try to become the enjoyer like the Lord, but they can never because they are not meant for it. Yeah,
When
continue.
the last illusion is also cleared off by the mercy of the Lord, the living entity again becomes reinstated in his original position and thus becomes actually liberated for this attainment of liberation from the material clutches. The Lord creates the material world, maintains it for some time, 1000 years of his measurement, as stated in the previous verse, and then again annihilates it by his will. The living entity are therefore completely dependent on the mercy of the Lord, and all their so-called enjoyments by scientific improvement are crushed into dust when the Lord decides.
Hmm. So the living entities are therefore completely dependent on the mercy of the Lord, and all their so-called enjoyments by scientific improvement are crushed into dust when the Lord desires. So everything ends. Yeah. Eko nanatvam anvichan
Eko nananatvam
Ekonanatvam
anviccham
anvicham
yogatalpat samuttita
yogatalpa
yogatalpa
samudita
samutitita
viryam hiranmayam devo
viranyam
viryam hiranmayam
hiranmayam
devo
devo
mayaya vyasrijat vidha.
maya
maya vyasrajat
vyasrajit krita.
Please read.
The
The,
Lord, why? Good, Mataji.
uh, the Lord, while lying on his bed of mystic slumber, generated the seminal symbol, golden in hue, okay, through external energy out of his desire to manifest varieties of living entities from himself alone.
Hmm. So when it is expressed as desire, his desire to manifest varieties of living entities, it is actually to facilitate the desires of the living entities. It's not that Lord has a specific desire to manifest the living entities. It is his desire in a way to assist them. Just like father may not like to, you know, go to a place, but he may go sometimes because his child may want to go. It's like that. So living entities are facilitated by the Lord for expression of their desires.
What is the meaning of slumber, Prabhuji?
Slumber means Lord is in a yoga nidra. Nidra means so Lord is lying in the causal ocean in a sleeping posture, right? So it's
Oh,
like mystic slumber because it's not like illusory slumber like us. Like for example, when we sleep, we forget everything. We are in a state of mode of ignorance. But when Lord is sleeping, it is very spiritual. It's mystical, magical because he's not forgetful. He's in transcendental pastimes when he does that. So he was always, enjoying in his spiritual pastimes in that slumber. It's a different state. Uh, there are various states of consciousness. When Lord is in this slumber state, it is, externally it says like slumber, but it is actually highly spiritual state of, you know, sleep. Yeah, please read.
at the end of each millennium, the creative forces, namely the material nature and the living entities who struggle in the material nature, all merge together into the transcendental body of the Lord. Again, when the Lord desires to manifest them, all of them are again displayed by the Lord. Therefore, the material nature is working under the control of the Lord, all of them under the agency of material nature and under the control of Lord, are thus repeatedly created and annihilated by the will of Lord. As such, before the creation or manifestation of the material cosmic world, the Lord exists as total energy, Mahasamasti, and thus desiring himself to diffuse to many, he expands himself further into multi-total energy, Samastiti. Okay, from the multi-total energy, he further expands himself into individuals in three dimensions, namely
Adhyatmic
uh, Adhyatmic, Adi, Adidhaivik,
and
and the
Adibhautik.
Adibhautik, as explained before. Vyasti, as such, the whole creation and the creative energies are non-different and different simultaneously, because everything is in emanation from him, the Mahavishnu and Mahasamasti. Nothing of the cosmic energies is different from him, but all such expanded energies have specific functions and display as designed by the Lord, and therefore they are simultaneously different from the Lord. The living entities are also similar energy, marginal potency of the Lord, and thus they are simultaneously one and with and different from him.
Mm. So all the energies of the Lord, whether it is marginal energy or external energy, they're all coming from the Lord. So they are in a way part and they are like Lord, but they also have their own individual properties. Right? Like we may have, nails. Nails are part of the body, but when you cut it, it is also separate from the body. Right? So it's like that. So all these energies they come from the Lord. So and also they are different. They also exist separately from the Lord. Adidaivam athadhyatmam
आदिदैवम् अथ
आत्माहम्
यत्त्वम्
आदिभूतम् इति प्रभो
आदिभूतम् इति प्रभो
अथैकां पौरुषं वीर्यम्
अथैकां पौरुषं वीर्यं
त्रिधा भिद्यता तच्छृणु
त्रिधा
तदाभिद्यता तच्छृणु.
Just hear from me how the potency of his lordship divides into 1 into 3, called the controlling entities, the controlled entities, and the material bodies in the manner mentioned above.
Yeah. How the potency of Lord divides into 3, called the controlling entities, controlled entities, and material bodies. What are the controlling entities? Maybe something like devatas. No? Controlled entities are the jivas, regular jivas in the material world, and they also all have material bodies.
So, controlling entities
Hmm.
is the Lord. Controlled entities are like jivas, right? People, and any other living organism on the planet. So, when you say material bodies, so what is that, Prabhu?
I think it is just about the energy, how energy is distributed.
Okay.
And all of these, all of these are actually energies of the Lord. Controlling entities means there are controlling entities. So, for example, there are within the material energy, there should be some controls in place, right? So, there are devatas like Varuna, Indra, they control certain.
Okay.
Controlled entities are those who are controlled by the controlling entities, right? And all of them need material bodies. So that is also his energy. So he has this marginal energy, which is some partly controlling entity, partly controlled energy. All of this requires material bodies. So I think his energy is distributed into giving into material bodies, generating jivas that are controlling entities, and some jivas which are controlled entities.
Okay.
Yeah, that is my understanding. I'm also not, I need to get little more deeper into this. Antah sharira akashat
Antasharira akasha
purusasya vichestata
purushasya vichestata
पुरुषस्य
ojhasaho bhalam jnagni
ojasaho balam
बलं
yajni
ज्ञाने
तथा प्राणो महानशो.
तथा
तथा
prano
प्राणो
mahanasu.
महानसु.
Yeah.
From the sky, situated within the transcendental body of the manifesting Mahavishnu, sense energy, mental force, and bodily strength are all generated, as well as the sum total of the fountainhead of the total living force.
Yeah. So this is how various material energies are created from the body of Mahavishnu. Prananti yam prana
Anuprananti
Yam
prana
prana
pranantam sarvajantusu
pranantam sarvajantasu
sarvajantasu
apanantam apananti
apanantam
apanantam
apananti
apananti
naradevam ivanuga.
naradevam
naradevam
ivanuga.
ivanuga.
Yeah.
As the followers of the king follow their lord, similarly, when the total energy is in motion, all other living entities move. And when total energy stops endeavoring, all other living entities stop sensual activities.
Yeah. So all these, manifestation and, unmanifestation, again, all these jivas go back to the body of Mahavishnu. So all of this keeps playing, time and again with time, right? So everything is controlled. That is the whole point. So all this manifestation in the material world is temporary and is controlled by the Supreme Lord in every possible way, right? So we think we are independent, but actually everything is under control of the Supreme Lord. That's the just like a king followers of a king follow their lord, right? Similarly, total energy is in motion, and everything is in motion when the Supreme Lord is active and in motion, right? So when again Supreme Lord takes rest, that time again the jivas enter his body, right? So there is manifestation and unmanifest, not Supreme Lord, specifically Brahma. When his night comes, everything goes back to his body. And again, at the universal resolution, everything goes back to the Mahavishnu body, right? So it works like that. Please read.
The individual living entities are completely dependent on the total energy of the Supreme Purusha. No one has independent existence, just as no electric lamp has independent effulgence. Each and every electrical instrument depends fully on the total powerhouse. The total powerhouse depends on the reservoir of the water for generating electricity. Water depends on the clouds, and the clouds depend on the sun. The sun depends on the creation, and the creation depends on the movement of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Thus, the Supreme Personality of Godhead is the cause of all causes.
Yeah. So we can see how everything is actually originally caused by the Supreme Lord. So water depends on the clouds, cloud depend on the sun depends on creation, and the creation depends on the movement of Supreme Lord. Okay? The Supreme Personality of God is the cause of all causes, is the supreme cause. So this kind of is the description of Virat Purusha, from whom everything comes. This is more towards explaining how uh, it is based on the desire of the Supreme Lord, everything in the material world is manifest. Right? Yeah. So this section ends. So we'll begin the next section next week. Okay. So we'll start with 17th verse.
Sure, Prabhuji.
Anything?
Hare
Okay,
Krishna.
thank you, Prabhuji.
Hare Krishna.
Thank you, Prabhuji. Hare Krishna.
Correction?